If purchasing a home is on your radar or your dream list, I hear you. You might be wondering if renting or buying is right for you. And honestly, you guys, there is no one size fits all. I am going to break it down for you so that you have a clearer picture and can make your own choice. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with renting. There are people where it makes a lot more sense for their situation to remain in the rental pool, and that is totally okay. However, if you really wanted to get into the nitty gritty and kind of break down what the real numbers might look like, I'm going to do that for you today. Full disclosure, I am not a lender, I am a realtor. So if you wanted to get into actual numbers for your own unique situation, you would want to ideally connect with a mortgage professional. And I have wonderful, wonderful lending partners in my market I can connect you with. This video is for educational entertainment purposes only, but also to give you kind of a rough idea and maybe help you take the next step and look at your own situation with a finance professional. Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Schultz. I, as I just mentioned, am a realtor in the Northern Nevada market, serving Reno, Sparks, and all the surrounding areas. I do work with a lot of relocators, so if you're thinking about relocating to our area, I would especially love to work with you. Anyway, on today's video, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about renting versus owning. So let's dive right in. So I'm going to start with the monthly reality check. This part is probably what primarily gets in the way of people who really want to own a home but won't, because overall, like monthly, it's at this moment in time, most likely going to be a lot more expensive to pay a mortgage and all the other fees that come along with homeownership than it is to pay rent. And so I think that's probably the biggest obstacle that gets in the way. However, there is so much more to that story. Let's start with the median sales price in Reno for a single family home. At the time of filming this, it was landing at $588,000. Now, if you're a first-time buyer, you may want to explore an FHA loan because you'll have to put less money down. And chances are, if you are not buying because renting is cheaper monthly, then you probably fall in the pool of people that maybe don't have like a big chunk of money to put towards a down payment. And that's okay. There are loan products for you. As I said, I'm not a lender. However, I do know that for an FHA loan, you can put down 3.5%. Now, that does require a bit higher monthly payment because you're going to have to pay PMI. That's a whole other topic. I'm talking about general monthly expenses right now. So let's say you put 3.5% down and the mortgage interest rate is 6.1%, which at the time of filming this is probably pretty close to accurate for an FHA loan, although obviously the rate you're given depends on so many personal things like your credit score, down payment amount, the property that you're buying itself. So like I said, these are general figures, but just to give you an idea. So with principal and interest, your monthly payment is going to be just shy of $3,500 a month. You are going to have things like PMI. If you're paying with an FHA loan, you're going to have things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, all the things that kind of beef up that monthly payment. So your monthly payment may look closer to $4,200 a month. Now, when you compare that to monthly rent on like a 2-bedroom home in our market, we're looking like your monthly payment might be closer to like $1,800 a month versus $4,200 a month. I get it. That's a huge, huge jump. And so for some people, that might be where the conversation ends. Like, I can't buy because I simply cannot buy. However, if you're on the fence, keep watching because there is more to the story than the monthly payment. But bottom line, month to month with current market conditions, renting is going to be your cheaper monthly option. Let's zoom out from the monthly scenario though and look at maybe a 5-year timeline. So if you pay $1,800 a month for 60 months, and that's assuming that your landlord isn't going to raise the rent, which very well could and most likely will happen at some point. But let's say they're a really easygoing landlord. Maybe they bought the home cash, a million years ago when it was cheap and they don't really care. They just want to keep it rented. They're happy with that $1,800 a month. Well, lucky you, you've struck gold. Maybe you should just keep renting. But $1,800 a month for 5 years totals $108,000. That's $108,000 that you're never going to see again, and you've built zero equity. So it's not like you now have this home that you've been paying on that you can sell and take money out away from. So, yes, buying is a higher monthly payment for now, and you do have to put some money down. However, your home value does appreciate, and your loan paydown is overall going to build you wealth. You're not essentially paying someone else's mortgage or making someone else rich. Let's dig into that topic of appreciation. Let's say that modestly, conservatively, there's an 8% appreciation year over year on that home that you first purchased for $588,000. After just 5 years, that home is now worth $864,000. Your principal paydown clocks in at $39,000. So after you pay off your loan, like if you were to sell that home after 5 years and pay off the remaining loan balance and approximate selling costs, you would net about $283,000. So renting for 5 years, you're out $108,000. Buying and selling 5 years later, you've gained $283,000. So that is the big picture that I think a lot of people on the fence really need clarity on. There are some other lifestyle things that could come into play if you're really wanting to own your own home that you don't really get in the rental world. And among those is obviously rent control is non-existent in our market, like in most situations. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but we don't live in a rent control city. Your landlord is likely and fully legal to go ahead and raise that rent on you whenever they feel like it. And if you don't like it, you can move on, but who knows if you're going to find another rental that's the same or less. At least with a loan, even if it is higher than your monthly payment, at least it's stable and fixed. Unless you've, purchased your home with an ARM or some kind of variable rate mortgage, but that's really not what I'm talking about in this video. When you own your home, you have the freedom to renovate. I actually DIY'd my entire kitchen counter over the weekend. That was a project. I actually went to art school, and 4 years of art school combined with TikTok convinced me that I was capable, but I actually was, and it turned out amazing. So I'm super happy about that. But that's something that you definitely cannot do in a rental. Stability overall is going to increase with a home purchase. You don't have a landlord breathing down your neck. I have a really good friend who lives in Midtown. It's super cute. She can walk everywhere. I mean, I adore her little place, but it is a duplex. So if you're in a situation where you have neighbors in an apartment or a duplex or a townhome or something like that, you have zero control over your neighbors. And I mean, if you purchase in an environment like that, you're going to have no control over your neighbors either. But if you're buying a single family home, like that's it. That's what you're living in. You're not going to have to deal with neighbors. You have a lot more control and stability over your environment. If you own your home, there's always the potential for a refinance. I feel like realtors have really jumped down people's throats with this one ever since rates came up post-COVID. And I'm not going to be one of those people that just says, marry the house, date the rate, because you don't know when it's time if you're actually going to be able to refinance. There are qualifications that you have to meet. It's essentially another loan. On top of that, we don't know what's going to happen with rates. Back in those days when the rates first spiked, we all thought, myself included, that that was not going to be as long of a term as it has been. Rates really haven't come down. I mean, they're starting to come down now, but like how many years has it been since COVID? 5? I wouldn't bet on that, but I'm just saying that there could be an opportunity to refinance at some point if you own your home. If you have pets, they are welcome in your home if you own them, as long as your HOA doesn't have any restrictions. So that's a big plus. I am a former pit bull owner. RIP to the sweetest dog ever. She was a pit boxer, but she was a liability. And back when I was renting in my early 20s, it was always stressful finding a place where I was allowed to have her. And that's a real concern for pet owners. So you will mitigate that when you own your own home. Real estate also gives you some flexibility for potential income down the line. There are house hackers who, buy a home and then rent out a room to a buddy for income. Maybe level out that big mortgage payment, kind of mitigate that higher monthly payment. That's one solution. I have clients now. I have one right now where I'm listing his home. It was actually his primary residence at the beginning of his real estate journey. And now almost 10 years later, he has bought several other homes and has kept the one I'm listing as a rental and several others. So that's another option. You may advance in your career and be able to buy another home and keep your first starter home as an investment property, which is super smart. but you can't do that with a rental. Although I have heard about people doing like Airbnb arbitrage, but that seems sketchy to me, to say the least. There also could be significant tax advantages if you're paying a mortgage. You're going to want to ask a CPA about this, which I am not, but you could have mortgage and property tax deductions depending on your situation. That's all I have for you. If you have any questions about any of what I just said, please don't be shy. If you're thinking about making a move in real estate, either buying or selling, especially if you're relocating, I would love to be of service to you. You can book a free call with me. There's a link to do that in the show notes below. It's no obligation. I will not spam you eternally. You will get one market update per month, but that's about it. And you can always unsubscribe. It's just a chance to connect, vet each other, see if we might be a good fit to work together, but at the very least, help you put a strategy in place with your next and best steps. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos each and every week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and of course, all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.